Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick comparison between the Sony 24mm f2.8 compact prime for E-mount full-frame cameras with the Sigma 24mm f3.5 compact prime, again, also for E-mount cameras. Now in terms of pricing, you're looking at $600 US for the Sony, $550 for the Sigma. Both are brand spanking new, and I really don't think you can go wrong with either one. In fact, I'll tell you right here at the top of the video, I don't think I'm going to be selecting one over the other because they both have strengths and weaknesses, but ultimately both deliver exactly what they should. Competency both in still and video capability while maintaining a really small form factor to match the A7C, which is one of my favorite cameras. I do not own it, but that's simply because I already have an A7R4, an A7R2, and until I see the A7C evolve a little bit more, I'm holding off because I have a feeling Sony's got a lot in store for us in this new compact form factor offering, especially since we're seeing so much glass. Sony, of course, rolled out 3 compact primes. Sigma also rolled out 3 compact primes. And when it comes to reputable manufacturers, I mean, outside of Sony, Sigma is my other go-to. Now, these are all review units. In full disclosure, as always, I did not purchase these, but I already reviewed the A7C a while back and have been actively covering both of these. So first and foremost, the Sony is a little bit faster, a little bit lighter at 6 ounces, made in China. The Sigma's a little bit heavier, a little bit slower. Again, f2.8, f3.5. I don't see that as being a big difference. If anything, negligible. Build quality on both of these is excellent. The Sigma made in Japan, as is essentially all of Sigma's hardware, both in terms of camera bodies and lenses. This is also available for the L mount, if you're curious. But again, we're talking about E mount here. And I don't think you can go wrong. What really needs to be pointed out, most importantly, is that when using the Sony, it is physically a little bit wider in terms of what you get in frame. Oddly enough, that's just a matter of the actual glass that's being used. So don't think because they're both 24 millimeters, that means that they're going to give you the exact same frame. They're not. The other thing you need to know is that the weather sealing is a little bit more robust on the Sony, but I don't recommend getting either of these wet. And again, that is per the manufacturer. So I would never want to get any of my photographic equipment or electronics in general wet, and I don't recommend that you do either. If you're a pro, you already know what you can and can't get away with, and I know you have ways to mitigate, as we all do, whether professional or not, so just be aware of that. The other thing that you need to know is the minimum focus distance. Now, if you care about using either of these in a macro capacity, Sigma has the advantage. Minimum focus distance here, a little over 4 inches. With the Sony, it's over 9 inches. So that's one area where the Sigma clearly has a win over the Sony. What the Sony has that I really like that the Sigma does not is beyond just a traditional switch for auto versus manual focus, which the Sigma, of course, does have as well. You can see right there, side by side. The Sony does have a customizable button. You see that right on my thumb. You can program that to something like, and I've mentioned this many times before, automatically switching into crop mode, which isn't as beneficial for an ultra wide like these 224s, but is more beneficial on some of the longer primes because that essentially can throw you into a semi-telephoto mode, but it's nice to have. I'd rather have it than not, and of course on the Sigma, you don't have it. More importantly though, we have the click switch on the Sony. Right there, you can see that. That gives you the ability to make the aperture ring silent. So that's another thing, an edge that does go to Sony. It doesn't exist here with the Sigma, but it's something that you may or may not care about. If you primarily shoot stills, you're not going to care. And that, breathes life into the $50 less expensive Sigma instantly. However, if you're a hybrid shooter and you do want to shoot video with either of these really compact lenses, the fidelity and overall autofocus experience isn't going to be very different, but the, essential capturing of the clickiness of the aperture ring is going to be, present with the Sigma, whereas with the Sony, you can easily eliminate that. And just so you can hear the difference in the clicky noise, here we go. Sony right up to my lav. Make this so you can hear it. And then, of course, as soon as I switch that off, basically nothing. With the Sigma, I actually find the clickiness on the aperture ring a little more satisfying, but it's also louder, ironically. So take a listen to that. And, the Sigma build quality, I do think, is a little bit better. It's a little heavier at that, the expense of the overall build quality, but something to be aware of. Now, mounted on the cameras, I think they both look really sharp from an aesthetic standpoint. I do not think you can go wrong. They both give you essentially exactly what I think anyone would desire from them, which is that sharp rangefinder look and feel. Of course, the Sony, again, is a little bit lighter, and that, I think, ultimately serves the goal that Sony was out to establish, which are lenses that make this one of the lightest and most powerful cameras on the planet. And that stays true. And it still stays true with the Sigma. It's just a little bit heavier. Now, let's talk about lens hoods. The lens cap, straightforward. I'll get to why I'm even mentioning that, because the Sigma does come with another lens cap. Now, the lens hood on the Sony, again, stays with that design language of keeping it compact, really small, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, if this doesn't give you a feeling of protection, which I don't really think that it does, it almost is to the point where I don't even know if I would bother using it, as odd as that may sound to many of you. With the Sigma, we have the complete opposite, which you're going to see in a moment. So that's why I bring up the whole lens hood and lens cap issue. But focus breathing, by the way, on both of these it does occur, and the ability to automatically acquire subject and tracking seems to be a wash on these two. So if you're worried that by going with the Sigma, you're going to lose anything really other than, as I've already stated, the customizable button as well as the click switch, don't worry. I mean, there's nothing else to worry about. And you will, in fact, be gaining, of course, that minimum focus distance, which is what draws me to the Sigma. Again, I'm not here to say that I prefer one over the other, because I think they're both really solid pieces of glass, and they both sport very affordable prices. So let's go ahead and get this guy mounted. And again, I wish Sigma did put on one of those click switches. It would be really nice. I mentioned already, it's a little bit heavier. I do like that the aperture ring and focus ring have a little bit more separation than they do on the G series lens. I'm not saying that it's cramped, but it's something to be aware of. It's a little bit tighter here, which isn't a bad thing. Again, I think the Sony is really sharp. But what's cool is that with the Sigma, we have a traditional lens cap, but if you want to use this, they include a magnetic one, and I really like that. So really a matter of personal preference, but something to be aware of is that with their included lens hood, which is much more robust and all metal construction, this may matter to some, may not matter at all to others. And I do think here I'd be more encouraged to use the lens hood, because it does really look like it will afford some protection in situations where you need it, and it can be afforded. You cannot, at least unless I'm missing something, easily use the magnetic lens hood, or lens cap, excuse me, when this lens hood is on. So I will show you right now the magnetic lens cap, and I really think that's another advantage, but that's not a reason to buy the lens, although for some of you it might be, and that's why I will not leave it out. All about convenience. And I think that's the whole point of the A7C, the compact primes, is that this is a convenience camera. I mean, what else is an incredibly small, full frame little monster like the A7C supposed to deliver, other than really convenience without compromise? And I think that's the whole premise of the camera. That's the premise of the compact primes. So I think Sigma was smart to include this. All three of their new primes, again, that they originally announced back in December, do have these magnetic lens caps, and I really love it. It's something that I hope to see more of. I know Sigma, I think, will continue to do it. Now, if this is attached, you can literally just drop it in there. I mean, I'm going to do that now. You're going to see I'm just going to drop it on, and it does line up, no problems. It's not as secure as a traditional lens cap. The issue is now getting it off is relatively difficult. I mean, I guess if you have a long enough nail, which I do not, you'll be able to get there, but just something to be aware of. So at the end of the day, these are both fantastic options. They both have really good handling. They both have fantastic build quality. And I'll just reiterate in closing, I do not think you can go wrong with either of these. Of course, it's always nice to go with native Sony glass, but when there are options out there, and some of you might actually have a personal preference for Sigma, then now you actually have an option. If the Sigma didn't exist, of course, I'd be saying buy the Sony, because while Tamron also makes a 24 mil that is very sharp, I haven't tested it, but I've certainly read enough about it, I would probably still go with the Sony. Being that I've got a Sigma in studio that performs nearly exactly the same, even if it's a little bit slower, I mean, I still can't tell anyone that they should be picking one of these as if they're going to be gems in low light. Granted, this does have the advantage, f2.8 versus 3.5. They're still not low light lenses. Now, if this was an f1.4 or even a 1.8, then I would say the Sony has, it's not apples to oranges, but we're getting closer to it being a stark contrast in low light performance, but that's not the case. So really, at the end of the day, I feel like this is about brand loyalty, the aesthetic, whether or not you care about that one is made in China, one is made in Japan, and whether or not you really value the customizable button and the click switch. If you do, then obviously the Sony is for you. If you prefer the slightly more robust build quality of the Sigma, and you actually plan on using this in its macro capacity with that minimum focus distance, then the Sigma is the winner. And that's why I said I will not clearly pick a winner between these two, which is rare. I generally do in my comparison videos, not just when it comes to cameras, but computers, tablets, smartphones, whatever it may be. This is one where it really is going to boil down to your own personal preference and whether or not you plan to utilize the different advantages and disadvantages that I've mentioned between these two. Of course, pricing shouldn't be an issue, considering that only $50 separates them. The good news is, as I mentioned over and over again, we have affordable, compact, ultra-wide primes for E-mount cameras. And while I don't recommend using these on cameras like my A7R II or A7R IV, of course you can. It's incredibly adorable, but fidelity and speed, of course, can be bested easily, but you'll be spending a lot more, and of course, your overall package will be a lot heavier. But that rounds things out. Two great 24 mil compact primes, and this just points to the direction that the A7C is just the beginning in terms of bodies, and compact prime lenses, well, we're just seeing the beginning of those too. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them, hit that like button, and as usual, please feel free to subscribe, and please stay safe. Later.